I'm the sports professor Rick Horrow. Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, Inside the Mega Events. It's a $1 trillion sports business to be sure, and about 50 to 60% of those dollars are wrapped up in the mega events, the championships, Super Bowls, All-Star Games, World Series, Wimbledon, tennis majors, golf majors, NASCAR championships, IndyCar championships, Ryder Cup. All of those too numerous to mention. I'm in my office to kick off the show, but I'm not here a lot. I'll be on the road on a weekly basis to bring you the inside tips from those major events. The balance sheets, who wins, who loses, the interviews, how you put on the events, and how you sustain them. This is all brought to you by Edelman Financial.
Money doesn't come with instructions. That's why we created Edelman Financial Services to help you with everything from college and retirement planning to managing your investments, helping you achieve retirement security. We're among the nation's top financial advisors. Come see how we can help you.
Welcome, everybody. Power of Sports, Beyond the Scoreboard, sports business, sports law, sports marketing, sports deal making, sports administration. Nobody knows what it is other than it is a $1 trillion business that is growing every day. I welcome everybody to the inaugural release of the Sport Business Handbook, insights from 100+ leaders who shaped 50 years of the industry, a labor of love that took basically 3 years and over 50 years to conceptualize. I'll get into the details, but it really kind of started in 1976 when it was my first year at Harvard Law across the river. And I learned fairly early on that I really didn't want to practice law, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and came up with a lofty, novel notion of wanting to write a sports thesis that focused on excessive hockey violence. Silly to some of you, but growing up in Miami, you could understand maybe the dynamic of it. I went to then Professor Jim Thornburg, who was ultimately the dean of the law school, and he said, and I quote, "I'd love to have you do this, but there is no such thing as sports law." Fast forward very quickly, and we'll fill in the blanks with the esteemed Professor Gracer. I decided that the whole world of sports business and sports law, anyway, would ride on my ability to beat Jim Thornburg in a squash game. I had never played squash, so I sought the advice and counsel from my then roommate, who is none other than John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, who's also a very good squash player in addition to everything else. And the bottom line of all of it is, after testing and trying, I did beat Jim Thornburg. He was 83 years old at the time. Not really relevant, but the point was I was then able to get the hall pass to go to then Gillette Stadium and Boston Garden and others to write the thesis that turned into a book, that turned into some hearings. But I would suggest, and Paul Weiler, who Stephen Gracer, Professor Gracer knows is one of the pioneers on the sports law side, and we'll talk a little bit about it. You could really point to that as one of the early times of sports business, sports law. Where's it gone? It's $100 billion to $1 trillion business, depending on what you include and what you don't. And the bottom line is, we're here to talk about not only the book, 100 industry leaders and 50 years of the sports business broadly defined, but also to bring together some of the finest minds in the sports business, a 27-city, 2-year tour that starts at Harvard Business School today to focus on 50 years of the sports business in all of the communities that we're reaching, with moments, and we'll talk about that later on, where everybody can kind of fill in the gaps on what they think are the 50 greatest sports moments in history, supplemented, by the way, with Bryce Harper just signing a 13-year, $330 million contract 20 minutes ago with the Philadelphia Phillies. So all of you who are Phillies fans just understand the money keeps getting bigger. So that is an interesting concept. Helping me today, not only because they help define purpose of sports business and sports law, are two of our contributors. First of all, a participant, contributor, non-panelist, Joe Favorito, who has his own PR firm and is the PR person of the stars, let's say, and has had some interesting perspective in the book. Small, big stars, all right, big stars, some small stars, very big stars.
Rick, tell
Other
me about
one.
the list you made today. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So today, Bleacher Report did the 100 most important people to follow on Twitter in sports business. So Rick was on the list.
Isn't that ironic? And I would take some credit for that, except I don't know how to use Twitter. So, a dirty little secret. We'll start left to right, and then I'll make some comments. Professor Stephen Gracer, the Richard P. Chapman Professor Emeritus of the Harvard Business School, Corporate Brand Management, Corporate Communications, the Business of Sports, and he's been teaching at HBS since 1958, and his academic excellence spans years, including an article on corporate brand identity that just appeared in the Harvard Business Review this last month as well. He created Harvard's sports business course, American Marketing Association Lifetime Achievement Award, Distinguished Career Contributions, the Scientific Understanding of the Sports Business. And by the way, this is the most important issue. Cal, take notice. He's known as the Cal Ripken of HBS because in 50 years of teaching at Harvard, he's never missed a class. Is that absolutely true? Have you never missed a class?
Correct.
That is correct. Your mouth to God's ears. That is correct. So Stephen Gracer, and to my right is Jeff Conroy, who is an incredible sports entrepreneur. The beauty of this book is we take different disciplines and find some common themes. He'll tell you everything about the intersection of sports medicine from an entrepreneurial perspective and the business of sports. Tell us just a couple minutes about Embody and what it is and where you're going with it.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So great to be here, guys. I'm Jeff Conroy. I founded a company called Embody 4 years ago, and we're really focused on regenerative medicine and additive manufacturing. So taking additive manufacturing technologies and building nanofibers made of collagen that turn into surgical implants for the treatment of rotator cuff repair, Achilles tears, and eventually we're going to build a fully supportive ACL. And so harnessing things like tissue engineering and using minimally manipulative surgical procedures, finding ways to bring biology, so harness your own biology inside your body and then bring biologic materials as a way to accelerate healing. And this genesis for us all came from the fact that the Department of Defense had a problem, which is Navy SEALs tear a lot of tendons and ligaments. Number one injury, Achilles, rotator cuff, and ACL. And we were, through a competitive process, awarded a $12 million opportunity to create a new standard of care for the treatment of tendon and ligament sports injuries. And so the idea is for high-performance athletes and high-performance warfighters and everyday moms and dads and kids to be able to harness regenerative medicine and harness these technologies and get back to return to sport quicker. And the idea is, how can we compress an Achilles recovery by half the time it takes? How can we help athletes and family members and loved ones get back and perform? And what we found is some really tremendous parallels, and we've talked a lot about the armed services and the tremendous athletes that we have in special operations and in all disciplines, and fully across all of DoD, soft tissue injuries are the number one effect of our armed services folks. And so we've been able to really focus on how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this problem and help minimize scarring so that you can accelerate recovery? And as we look at the news, it seems like we see more traumatic injuries on the field and on TV. We see more cringeworthy Achilles tears and rotator cuff tears or ACL tears, compound fractures. And so for us, we're really in the sports business. For us is, how can we look at the assets of sports, the tremendous athletes who play these roles, and how do we play a role in accelerating their recovery, extending their careers, and all of the requisite financials that fall from that.
So the interesting thing about this, you expected to hear a lecture about general sports business. Now you hear about ligament regeneration. The beauty of sports business, sports law, sports marketing is it ensnares so many different things. We'll hear from Jeff a little later about the entrepreneurial perspective, why he wrote the chapter in the book, and also the philanthropic aspect of the world of sports from his perspective. Turning to Dr. Gracer next, and then here, the agenda, I wanted to have Professor Gracer talk a little bit about the evolution of the sports business from his perspective, sports business in the classroom, that overview. I'm going to give you my perspective on that, and then we'll take a break from the first part of the show, and then we'll shift to philanthropy. Okay? So, Stephen Gracer, take it away.
Thank you, Rick. And once again, welcome to you, your guests, and on behalf of all of us in the Business of Sports Club. We're happy to have you here at HBS. I think most of the people here, certainly all people who have been officers of the Business of Sports Club for the last 25 plus years since its founding, I have been marching right along with all of those people as the founding faculty advisor and still the faculty advisor to the club. And the reason I did that is, at the time, and still now, I was teaching sports business along with the real things that I do of a more intellectual character with regard to branding, reputation, and the like. But in its own realm, sports business has developed into its own large business with its own content and intellectual dimensions as well. I just wanted to flag for you, because I'm not going to read this, but in the book is this insert, and in that is this commentary, I guess I would call it, or essay, that